Well, hey there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Disrupt Your Money. And today we are talking about a really important topic for all of you newbies out there. So, for anybody who is thinking about starting a business or maybe has just started their business, I want you to pay really close attention to this episode. I'm going to try to make it short and sweet because I'm guessing that right now you are feeling like a fire hose is pointed at your face. That is exactly how I felt when I started my business. There was so much information out there. Everybody had an opinion. I think I have more freebies than, I don't know, seconds in the day. From everything on, how to do my social media to how to get clients. There is just so much going on when you start a new business. And I don't want to add to that overwhelm. But my goal is with today's episode and with the resources that I'm going to offer you is to give you enough guidance to help you get some really good systems in place without adding on anything that you don't need. We don't want to make anything too complex at this point in the game. You're going to have plenty of time for that. So, today, we're going to be talking about, for all of you newbies, how to start your new business and get the money stuff set up in a way that doesn't F it up. Because let me just tell you, I have a lot of clients and a lot of people in our community and a lot of money I've made in my business as a result of people making these oopses when they start their businesses. And I don't love that. Every time, we love working with people who need our help and support, but I always, wish that there were better resources out there or more focused resources out there for folks who are starting their new business so that they don't end up in that position where they have to pay somebody like me to clean up a mess. So that's what today's episode is all about. And let's go ahead and dive in. Now, when we talk about small businesses today, I'm really talking about, or let me back up. When I talk about new business owners, I'm really talking about small business owners. I'm talking about folks who are, the only person in their business. Maybe they've got a small team. But in general, they're independently owned and operated. And I'm particularly crafting my suggestions to people who have online or service-based businesses. It does not mean that what I tell you today would not work if you have a product-based business or if you have a retail shop or a brick and mortar location. What I'm teaching you today probably will work for all of that stuff. But because the majority of people in our community are online and or service-based businesses, that is what I know. Those are my people. So that is where I'm coming from. That is the place I'm coming from. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to today's episode. Now, I also want to just throw some stats out there for you and note how important small businesses are to our economy. So according to a study that was done back in 2019, small businesses actually generate 44% of the economic activity in the United States. 44%. That's incredible. That is a lot of mom and pops and pops and mom on her own shops that exist out there that is powering the US economy. And you are about to be a part of that, or maybe you already are a part of that and you're just getting your feet wet. That's a really exciting community and group to be a part of because that impact can have such a ripple effect. It can be so huge. You might feel like, oh, I'm such a small business, but you are one of 44%. And that number, by the way, is growing. So it's a really exciting thing to be a part of. However, we also know that the pandemic disproportionately affected marginalized business owners, particularly people of color, Black people, people with disabilities. We know that folks in those marginalized communities were harmed more from the pandemic than white business owners were. And we're seeing that impact now as I don't want to say we're not totally out of it, but as we're coming out of it. And we're seeing that in the shuttered businesses, in the businesses that have too much debt, in the businesses that are struggling to stay afloat. So a lot of the work that we do here at the Equitable Money Project is really to ensure that educational resources and support get into the hands or the minds of those disproportionately affected, marginalized business owners, because we know that now more than ever, I'm part of it, have an uphill battle to climb in this society. Just to throw some numbers out again, in case I really need to prove my point here, which if you're a listener, I probably don't have to prove my point to you, but just so you have them. Black business owners experienced the largest losses. So a 41% drop in the number of active Black owned businesses from pre to post pandemic. 41% drop. That is staggering. Latinx business owners also experienced major losses, so 32% drop. Immigrant business owners suffered a 36% drop. Female business owners, a 25% drop. So we've seen these staggering losses in the number of business owners in these marginalized communities. And it's not just about, oh, that sucks for the business owner, their business doesn't exist anymore. These losses impacts their families, it impacts their communities, it impacts their neighborhoods. Think about neighborhoods that are overwhelmingly of one culture or another. If you have a big hit to a group of business owners, it's most likely going to disproportionately affect those neighborhoods. And so now you have neighborhoods that don't have access to as many resources as they did. That's going to hurt home values. It's going to hurt schools. It's going to hurt the community overall. It's going to hurt the wealth building that needs to happen. So these losses don't just harm the people that they're directly affecting. They have these ripple isn't even the right word, like massive wave effects that just compound throughout the entire society. So this is a really huge problem. And why am I bringing all this up? Well, because the point of this episode is to give you the tools that you need to start your business on the right foot, to lay the groundwork, the right financial foundations so that you can build a long-lasting, financially stable and successful business. And the reason why that is so much more important and more critical now than ever is because of what I'm talking about, because we have seen marginalized communities be hit harder than ever from this recent pandemic, and it is staggering. So your role as a business owner in today's world is to be a part of the progress that we need to see, to be a part of that rebuilding that we need to see. And in order for you to make the most of that, we've got to make sure you're starting off on the right foot. So that's what we're talking about here today. Now, access to capital is something that comes up a lot as well in these conversations. And I want to address it here, even though it's not exactly what we're going to talk about today, because I know it's often on the minds of folks who are starting businesses or who have just started a new business. And the sad reality is that access to capital still remains a huge problem, and especially for marginalized business owners. So there was a recent poll that asked Black business owners some questions about businesses, and more than half of the respondents who are Black business owners cited the lack of access to cash as the main hindrance to their ability to grow their businesses. The lack of ability to cash, to capital, to get money into their businesses. And we know that historically, because of the massive stealing of wealth and the hindrance of wealth building that has been perpetuated on Black communities and other marginalized communities, we know that folks are already starting off with less to work with. And now we add in the pandemic, and we add in a lack of access to capital coming from VC, from venture companies, coming from banks, from lenders, from grant organizations, from all of that. And it's just compounding the problem. So the lack of access to cash, to capital being the main hindrance to, in this case, Black business owners growing their business is not a shock at all. And it's something that you are going to have to be actively aware of as you grow your business, regardless of the color of your skin. It certainly affects certain groups of marginalized business owners more than others. But if you are a woman, if you are disabled, if you are LGBTQIA, if you are Black, if you are a person of color, and the list goes on, you are most likely going to run into some roadblocks to getting the capital that you need. Because the reality is that still like 97% of VC capital is going to straight white men. And not straight, sorry, I shouldn't say straight. Not all of those are straight, but it's going to white men. So it's a problem. But again, that's why we're going to focus on the stuff we're focusing on today, because having the right financial foundations in order is going to make it easier for you to grow your business. Not easy, but easier for you to grow your business, even with all of those hindrances in the way. So, what is my advice to you if you are just starting out, or if you have been starting, maybe you're in the first year of your business, you're still figuring it all out. What is my advice to you to not F up the money stuff? Number one is to have a plan. Now, when I say have a plan, I don't mean go type out a 50-page business plan that you have printed at Staples and nobody's going to look at. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is sit down and start to map out what the money in your business looks like. Where is it coming from? How much is coming in? What are you going to price things at? What is the profitability of that service or product at that price? What are your expenses? How are you going to pay yourself? How much are you going to pay yourself? Are you going to have a team? Are you going to pay them? What does it cost to have that team? What does it cost for the other things that you need to run your business? Are you going to have enough for savings? Where are you going to do that savings? How much are you going to save? All of these questions are things you need to think about up front. Now, you may not have the answers. In fact, you most likely will not have the answers to a lot of these questions, but you have to start mapping them out, because the more, it's like fill in the blanks, the more that you can fill in, the better a roadmap you have between where you are today and where you want to go in the future, what those goals are. We talk a lot about budgeting in the Equitable Money Club, which is our membership community. And what I'm always saying is, your budget is not set in stone. It is a roadmap to get from where you are today to your goals at the end of the year, where you want to be. And it's just one way to get there. There's lots of ways you can get there, but it's a guide. And then as things change, you can change and your map shifts. Oh, we want to take this off ramp. We want to go check that over there. When you're driving from point A to point B, you don't always have to go in this one direction. You can go different ways to still get there, but that roadmap is going to help you figure out how to get started and how you can ultimately get there. And yeah, some things may change, and that's normal. So make sure that you have a plan, map it out, talk it through with people that you trust, talk it through with business owners that you know. Like, kick the tires on this thing. Where are the faults in it? Where are the question marks? Where are the things that maybe don't sound a little bit riskier? And that may be okay. You may say, I'm still going to do it anyway. Cool. But understand that risk, understand what is going into this plan. Because if you just say, I'm just going to start tomorrow and we're just going to wing it and it's going to be great, you're going to find really fast that the flying by the seat of your pants thing doesn't work long term, especially as you're growing a business. Because if you're constantly building it as you fly, you're going to be constantly living in that place of stress and that place of unknown and uncertainty. And that is not going to help you build that long-term, financially stable and successful business that you want. My second recommendation, and I've already touched on this a little bit or alluded to this, is to set up your financial systems now. I cannot stress how important it is to do this stuff. When I first started doing this work, doing this education work, I made a course called Biz Money Blueprint, and I sold it for $500. By the way, it's now completely free inside of our Biz Money library, which you can access at equitablemoneyproject.com/free. But I built that course because so many people I talked to said, I'll worry about the money stuff when I have more money, when I get bigger, when I have more time, when I have a team. And I kept thinking to myself, anytime someone would say one of those things to me, I kept thinking, what are you waiting for? Why are you waiting for those things? Because when those things happen, it's going to be harder. It's going to be so much harder at that point. Do it now while you have the time, while you have the bandwidth, while you have the headspace, while you don't have the clients or the customers or whatever, while you're not overwhelmed. Get those financial foundations in place. It's important because it's going to preserve your energy down the road, but it's also important because it's going to set you up like a real business. I have a lot of folks in our community that come to us and they are treating what they're doing like a hobby. And the reality is, if you treat it like a hobby, it will always be a hobby. You will never make the kind of money or the kind of impact that you want to make, because if it's a hobby, it's just a hobby. nobody has $1 million, $1 billion hobby. It's just not a thing. So you've got to treat it like a real business. That means you have to get the steps in place at the beginning, or as soon as you can to the beginning, to act like a real business, to act like the real business that you are. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, let's talk about the components of that. Number one, a separate bank account for your business. I do not care if you have a legal entity or not. If you are making money or you want to make money as a business, get a separate bank account. It is so important to keep your funds separate, not just for tax purposes, not just for legal purposes if you have a legal entity, but because it's going to put you in the right headspace to treat this thing like a real business. Number two, have an accounting system. I think it's going to come out in a couple of weeks. Don't quote me on that. I just did an episode on bookkeeping. I want you to listen to that episode about why it's so important to have a good accounting system and to stay on top of your books. Your books, by the way, are where you track all the numbers in your business. Again, this is not just for tax season. This is because the information that is contained in tracking your numbers is so critically important to grow, to make better business decisions, that if you are not paying attention to the numbers in your business, you are doing a disservice to your business. I cannot stress this enough. You cannot grow what you do not know. If you do not know the numbers in your business, that business will never grow to the place you want it to be. You might get away with it for a little bit, but eventually it's all going to come crashing down. So you've got to have a good accounting system set up. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of Wave Apps, which is completely free. WAVEAPPS.com, completely free to set up. There are some paid features. You don't necessarily need them when you're first starting out, but it's free to set up. It's free to use, easy to set up, easy to use, and I highly recommend you check it out. Number three, how are you collecting money? Do you have a good system for collecting money? Are you making it easy for people to pay you? I often tell the story of years ago, I was on Instagram. I don't even remember what the product was anymore, but there was something somebody posted that I thought was cute, like a piece of art or I don't know, a purse or something. And I thought, I want that. So I tried to figure out how to buy it. I went to their bio and they didn't have a link there. So I searched on Google. I couldn't find a website. I literally could not figure out how to buy this thing. So finally I sent them a DM, which I hate to do. Like I like to just go and press the button and buy and be done, but whatever. I really wanted this thing. So I sent them a DM and I said, I'd love to buy whatever this thing was. And they finally sent me back a message and they said, great. And I forget the exact process they wanted me to follow, but it was something like, I think they said, give me your email. I'll send you an invoice. They send me the invoice and then I have to mail them a check because they don't have an online payment method. This is like 3 days into this thing. And by that point I was like, forget it. I don't want this thing anymore. This is not worth it. And it was like a $20 or $30 thing. This was not some big expensive thing. And I don't know why this person had this system in place. I don't know if they were like, I'm just getting started and I haven't got everything set up yet. Or maybe they wanted me to send them a check because they didn't want to pay the fees on a credit card. I don't know. But you know what? They weren't acting like a real business. And they lost a sale because of it. And they probably lost a lot of other sales because of it too. How are people paying you? Have you made it as easy for them to pay you as possible? This means accepting credit cards. And yes, I know there's a fee. Get over it. It's the cost of doing business. Build it into your prices. This means having ways for people to pay you online and not requiring that you send them an invoice. If you do custom proposals, that's a different thing. And I get that. That's okay. But even then, make sure it's super easy for them to pay you. If you send them a custom proposal, don't type that shit up in Microsoft Word and PDF it and email it over to them. Have an invoicing app. By the way, you can use Wave Apps for that. It'll send them a nice invoice. It'll have a button they can click on to go pay. Make it easy for them to pay you. Do not mess around with this because this is one of the most important things is getting money into your business. And if you create barriers to doing that, you're going to lose people. I have said this already a ton of times in this, but you have to treat your business like a real business starting now. If you do not, you do not have a business. I cannot stress this enough. And let me just tell you, the more that you act like a real business owner, the more that you're going to see other people treat you like a real business owner, which means the less you're going to see them question your price, question your policies, question your practices, push back on you, because they're going to see, oh, that's a real business. I'm not going to question that. But if they still see you as their friend or their person they know on social media, they're going, there's no. You are a real business owner. As of today, moving forward, you are a real business owner, and I want you to act like it. Lastly, do not put your head in the sand. You have to have a process for staying on top of this stuff. Now, again, I did a whole episode on bookkeeping, so I recommend you listen to that episode when it drops in a couple of weeks. But we also have tons of great resources inside of the Biz Money library. I mentioned my Biz Money Blueprint course, which is in there. You can get access to that by going to equitablemoneyproject.com/free. There are lessons upon lessons of how to set up processes to stay on top of the money stuff in your business. So please, if you do nothing else, check those out. But here's why this is so important that you do not put your head in the sand. I mentioned it before. You cannot grow what you do not know. If you do not pay attention to your numbers, your business will never thrive. You need to have a process in place so that you are consistently and regularly checking in on those numbers. Inside of my community, we like to recommend that you do weekly money meetings. We call them money meetings. You can call them money dates, whatever you want. Weekly money meetings where our community checks in on their numbers. What does that mean? It means opening up that accounting system, reviewing those transactions, categorizing them, making sure that everything is inside of that accounting system. We call it reconciling. It means looking at your reports. Where did your money come from? Where did your money go? Where are you spending money? How much do you have left? What does your profit look like? Do you have profits? It means diving into those numbers and asking a lot of those questions. And again, if that feels overwhelming, we've got lots of resources for you on what that looks like. You don't have to know all that today. But what I want you to do today is to set the process for how you're going to do that. Is it going to be weekly? What day? What time? Put it on your calendar and make sure you don't cancel it. This is so critical because if you can do this now when you're just starting out and you can start building these good habits, it is going to make a world of difference when the business has grown and you've got lots of money coming in and lots of moving pieces. I said this before, but let me say it again. The number of people who come to us years into their business with this stuff not set up is staggering. And it's frustrating. I'm not frustrated at them. I get it. This information isn't out there, regularly accessible, or it wasn't until we came around. So I get why they're in that position, but I don't want you to be, because by that point, it's a lot harder to clean up. It costs money to clean up. And it's also just harder to implement those habits that are so much easier to form when you start them at the very beginning. So my recommendations to you: get that plan in place, set up your financial systems now, and don't put your head in the sand. Know your numbers. All right, friends, so I wanted to dive into a little bit of money news that might actually be beneficial to you. Now, there has been a lot of talk right now about rising interest rates. And let's be honest, if you are a small business owner, this is probably something that you're feeling. Even if your business isn't necessarily taking on debt, you might have lost customers because of it. You might notice that the price of things you buy has gone up, all because these interest rates have risen. And let's be honest, the Fed rate hikes will likely still continue to go up and continue to drive up the cost of running small businesses. So this is not anywhere near over. That said, I do want to put a little bit of a reality check on this, which is to say interest rates right now are not as high as they have been in the past, nowhere close. So I get that this feels bad, but we also need to not overreact, because this is a temporary period in our society that will course correct over time. Okay. But I get that it's driving up the cost of your business. So what do you do about it? Well, this is when we have to reevaluate our costs. Are we using our money in the best way possible? Is there anything we're spending money on that we don't need to be spending money on? Do we need to reevaluate our own pricing inside of our business? Don't be afraid to make changes just because it's a paralyzing time. It feels scary, right? I get it. Also, keep in mind that the Consumer Price Index, which, if you're not familiar, measures the prices of goods and services, has also risen. So it increased 8.5% in March from a year ago, while the Producer Price Index, which measures prices that wholesalers pay, jumped 11.2% year over year. So prices are going up. We can feel that. I know I've been feeling that in my own household budget and my business budget. We can feel that. But again, if your prices haven't gone up, look at, do they need to? Because if everything else that you're paying for is costing you a lot more money, why are you taking the full brunt of that loss? Make sure you're checking into your numbers. Make sure you're seeing if what you're selling still makes sense for your business. I want to wrap this up. Well, I've got a couple more things before we wrap up, but I want to kind of wrap up this whole conversation with a little bit of money mindset. Now, if you've been here a while, you know that I'm not really a mindset person. I don't really delve into that too much. I like to get into the tactical, how do we take action, get stuff done. That doesn't mean I discount money mindset. It's super important. It's just not what I'm good at. But I want to say this: perfection is the enemy of good enough. In fact, when I first started my first business, I had a really hard first year. And at the end of that year, I was like, something has to give. I printed out and put right next to my desk. Oh gosh, now I've actually forgotten it. I had this really profound thing to tell you, and I've completely forgotten what it says. That's really embarrassing. I'm not sitting in that office right now, so I can't tell you. It said, oh, well, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember. It basically said imperfect, done and imperfect is better than not done at all. That's not at all what it said. It was much more eloquent, but that was the gist of it. And I think that's the really important thing to remember right now, especially if you are starting out, whether it comes to the financial stuff or really anything in your business, which is don't dwell on getting it perfect. So much of starting a business is just that. It's just getting started. And imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. That's what it is. I just remembered it. Imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. And so much of being a business owner at any stage is just taking a step forward every single day, even if you're not sure if that step's the right one, because sitting in paralysis is detrimental to the business, and in many cases is what kills the business. So you just have to start. You just have to take that step forward, rather than waiting until everything is perfectly in order or you perfectly understand it. Just go ahead and take action and then adjust as you go. Okay, I want to dive into our listener questions. We've got a great question this week. I'm just starting out, so I'm just keeping my business money in my personal bank account. That's fine, right? I'm really not making any money yet. Well, you heard me, hopefully, at the beginning of this episode say, no, I don't care if it's not legally required. So let me take a step back. If you have like an LLC or corporation for your business, you have to have a separate bank account for those companies. It's a separate thing. It's a separate legal thing. If you don't, if you're just a freelancer, I shouldn't say just, but if you're a freelancer or you're sole proprietorship or whatever, you don't have a legal entity, you're not legally required to have a separate bank account. But let me tell you, it's by far the number one thing you should do. Because having that money separate is going to be so critical for a lot of reasons. Number one, it makes you look like a real business. Number two, makes it easier to track the money in your business. Number three, if you ever get audited, you do not want to open up your entire personal bank account, show them everything that's in there. I'd rather just have them look at my business bank account if I can. So yes, please get a bank account. We are huge fans of Novo, N-O-V-O. You can grab our link to join them by going to equitablemoneyproject.com/Novo. They're fabulous. The bank accounts are free. There's no minimum deposit. They've got lots of great features for online and service-based business owners. Highly, highly, highly recommend. There is no excuse for not having a business bank account unless you are one of the people that gets caught up in the inequitable banking practices that restrict certain people from having bank accounts. And that is a different conversation for a different day. But otherwise, if you get a bank account, you absolutely need to have one for your business. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. It is so important to get the money stuff in your business right. Hopefully, I've made that point clear today. We have incredible resources for you inside of our free Biz Money library that you have to have access to this, because if you want to do anything right with the money stuff in your business, you need to have a little bit of guidance on how to do it. We were not taught this stuff in school. Let us teach you. So you can get your free access to our Biz Money library by going to equitablemoneyproject.com/free. You'll find lots of great resources inside there. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us here on the podcast at disruptyourmoney.com. You can get in touch with Sarah, our incredible community manager. She will find you anything you need. And we're just so grateful to have you as part of our community. I hope you join the Biz Money library. I hope you enjoy this season of setting up your business and the early stages of running your business. And I'm really excited to see everywhere that it takes you. If you are a fan of what we're doing here, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player and leave us a review. We would be so absolutely grateful. And until next time, I hope you are disrupting your money in lots of ways. See you then, friend.
Thanks for listening to Disrupt Your Money. If you have a money question you'd like answered in a future episode, go to disruptyourmoney.com. To support the podcast, please rate and review it wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want access to all of my free templates, checklists, resources, and guides, click the link for the Biz Money library in the show notes.